We're ready to move past the stale ideas and faded names of the past. And we are more than ready for a new generation to lead us into the future. We won't win the fight for the 21st century if we keep trusting politicians from the 20th century. America is not past our prime. It's just that our politicians are past theirs.
That was former UN ambassador and former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley kicking off her presidential campaign in Charleston, South Carolina yesterday. In her speech, Haley calling for a new generation of conservative leaders to step up and take on today's woke Democratic Party. Her entry into the 2024 field makes her the first Republican to openly challenge former President Donald Trump for the Republican nomination since his entry into the race back in November. So the question now being, how will she fare against her former boss? Ronna McDaniel is the chairwoman of the Republican National Committee. She joins us live. Good to see you, Ronna. I appreciate your time to come on and talk about this here. So major announcement. There's a lot of excitement for Haley, as we've seen, and those behind her supporting her as well. Can I just get an official statement, at least from the RNC, on Nikki Haley becoming one of the first challengers within the race for the Republican nomination in 2024?
What I will say is our candidates are so much better than anything Joe Biden and the Democrats are putting forward, and I'm very excited to put fresh Republican ideas in front of the American people, ideas that are working for the American people, and contrast that with Biden, who's been a total disaster. So, you know, the game's on. We're going to be announcing debates soon. We're going to have a contested primary, and all of that is good for the Republican Party as we put forward our plan and our vision for the American people.
And there has been this talk about former Vice President Mike Pence or Secretary Mike Pompeo, potentially Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, and so many others to join in this race. But the question I'm getting at is, do you think this is going to be a crowded Republican field like it was in 2016, or perhaps will it be a little more intimate, a little more direct?
There certainly have been a bunch of candidates looking at it, and we've watched people ramping up. You know, we see the book tours, we see the staffing up, and I think there will be more candidates getting into this race that is already started, obviously. The reality, though, is the Democrats have shut out any competition. Biden was is so damaged and so weak that he changed his primary calendar to put South Carolina first because he didn't want any Democrat jumping in. So we now know their field. They have a weak president, and we're going to have a great bench of candidates to put in front of the American people. And I think that's good for us heading into 2024.
One of your candidates now is former President Trump, wasting no time in weighing in on Haley's campaign. He actually put out a statement, an email yesterday titled "The Real Nikki Haley." I'm sure you've seen, but we pulled a quick note from it, if you will. Features a slew of critical articles written over Haley over the years, including one from the New York Times in 2012 titled "Hillary Clinton is an Inspiration to Nikki Haley." Obviously, you do not speak for the former president, but I guess a fair question for you is this just the beginning of some mudslinging that we're going to see within the Republican Party from these candidates?
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be a little tussling, right? There's going to be some contrasting of ideas. That's fine, as long as we come together and we remember what we're fighting against. And as we're watching our border being inundated, we're watching the fentanyl crisis, we're watching the Democrats being weak on crime, when we're seeing inflation at the level it is, no matter what happens on that debate stage or through this primary process, we have to keep our eye on defeating Joe Biden. So, yeah, there'll be some back and forth, and then we're going to face the Democrats.
I wanted to ask you about that. There was a moment where Nikki Haley said there needs to be a new generation of Republican, essentially. Is there any truth to that? Does the RNC stand behind that? Do you want to see a new generation of Republican leadership?
I want to see Republican leadership. I want to see a Republican in the White House, and I do think we need to retire Joe Biden. And he has been a disaster. He has turned his back on the American people. So for me, it is ABB, anybody but Biden, and that's how I think every day.
All right, ABB, writing that down. Ronna, final question for you. For those that have DirecTV, they're not going to be able to see this conversation between you and I. Newsmax was dropped from their lineup back in January, late January. Any thoughts on that? I mean, we're talking about moving into a presidential election year. So there are certain platforms where certain candidates could come to speak. Maybe they won't have the opportunity on this network, but they can on that network. That's not going to be the case with DirecTV. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the RNC has been very vocal. I think you've seen this. I've sent letters to all of our members to get engaged. We want to make sure that Newsmax has a platform on DirecTV. We really hope this gets resolved. This is good for our country to have conservative speech be allowed on every single platform. And we're seeing this over and over again with Twitter, with other instances. We just saw Jim Jordan subpoena big tech. We need to be able to have conservative voices out throughout this country. And we hope DirecTV comes to the table and makes that happen.
All right. RNC Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel joining us live. We do appreciate that. Good to see you, Ronna. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.